Okay, so you have these three, total interest, principal, and your final amount. And they've given you a formula that says A is equal to P plus I. But you also have formulas for I and P. So let's do them in colors so we know exactly what we're talking about. We can make a connection. So P, your principal. What is the formula they give you for your principal? Oh, it should be just nothing. It should be just principal, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, okay. P should just be the principal. So there's really nothing we have to write down there. But your interest is equal to the principal amount. So pretty much that amount there.
Minus.
Oh, you can do the
Or
no,
the
it's the investment
and the
one.
PRT.
Yeah, exactly. R and T's time, so you have R and T. It's important. R is, do you guys use interest rate for R? And T for time, I would imagine. Annual interest rate. So R is annual interest rate. And T is time of investment, or do they call it periods in this one? Time that the money is invested, so measured in years. So yeah, time in years, let's say. Okay, so we have everything up here. A, essentially most of the time you'll be looking for your A, the final amount of investment. These are only with simple interest formulas. So you know this stuff. This is not news to you. So the other formula, what they've done is they've showed you another way to do it. Instead of having to separate this P and then doing an actual interest rate formula for interest rate, what they've done is they give you this formula. You can just remember this one, and this one will solve them all for you. They had P plus I, but remember I is equal to PRT, so they use substitution. They substitute PRT in for I. So A is equal to P plus PRT. And I know it's a lot of letters. And what they've done is they found a common factor. Mm-hmm. Common factor in the two terms here is P and P. Yeah. So I can take P out. And when I take P out, think of it as dividing both of those by P. Mm-hmm. So when I divide P by P, I would get, do you know? 1, yeah. And when I divide PRT by P, I divide PRT. That's right, exactly. So this is the formula you really only have to remember. That way it's a little less redundant. You can just plug the principal in once, your interest rate in once, and your time in once. Okay, and solve it. So think of that as your A formula. Okay, this is your compound simple interest formula. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. Okay. Do you want to try one?
Okay. I already did that one with the other formula.
You've done it with the other one?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, well, let's see. What did you get with the other one when you did it?
800 or 8,000.
Okay, let's find out. This one, calculate simple interest earned on each investment. So on the other formula, it would be A equals P plus I, and you have your I, right? So P is $5,000, and I is equal to PRT. So once again, it's 5,000 multiplied by your interest rate of 8% and compound it for 2 years. Now, 8% as a decimal, do you know how to make it?
0.0.
Yeah, so 0.08. And time is 2 years. So simple enough. Mm-hmm. Plugged it in. Okay, let's calculate. This is going to be 5,000 plus, 10,000 times 0.08. Get out of here, you. That's just going to be 2 decimal places taken away. So 800, right? 800. Let's keep it going. Okay. Yeah, so you're right. The simple interest here is just 800, and the final amount would have been $5,800. Quick way of doing that, we could have done A equals 5,000. 1 plus 0.08 times 2. 5,000 equals 1 plus, what is that going to be? Do you have a calculator with me? 0.08 times 2. 0.16. 0.16, okay. So 1 plus 0.16, 5,000 times 1.16 equals 1 times 5,000. 5,000. So you're going to find the exact same A value. Did you see how to plug that in? Yeah, straightforward enough. Okay. Okay, your next lesson dealt with compound interest. So you had simple interest was the first one. This one is compound. Compounded interest. So this is where you earn interest on interest you've already earned. So all that money that they give you in the bank, they calculate interest on top of that. Simple interest is this: we're going to give you, let's say they're giving you 10% of $1,000, so they give you $100 every month. They'll just give you $100 every month, even though your bank account continuously goes up. Compounded interest, that first $100 you got in interest, so say we had $1,000 in the bank, they gave you $100, now you have $1,100, and they'll give you interest on that, higher than $1,000. So that's what compounded interest is discussing. Yeah, your formula for your total amount is A equals, once again, principal plus 1 plus I over N. Okay, A is still your final amount. We'll call it final amount. It's just important you know what the letters are. P is principal again. EL or AL? AL? Principal. One is one. I. Okay. I is interest rate divided by compounding
So you have to do more.
periods.
I guess you want.
Yeah. So in other words, and N is the per year by the number of years. Yeah. N is number of N is number of years. Let's do this in green. So we have a different line. Yeah, so this one has a lot more work to it. N is number of years times compounding periods. So what I usually do is I break these into, I tell the kids that I give C compounding periods, or number of times compounded. Number of compounding periods. I give them an extra variable, compounding periods, so that we can actually write I and N as formulas. So I, if you remember, I is equal, we used R as interest rate in the last one. We're going to call R interest rate again. Interest rate. Okay, so there's lots of definitions in this. I is actually the interest rate divided by number of compounding periods. So usually they won't actually just give you I. You have to solve for it. Same idea is with N. N is, we're going to call YR number of years, okay? Of years. So N is your years, so depending how long you leave the money in the bank, times number of compounding periods, okay? So we're going to call that your C, number of compounding periods. So you actually have formulas for I and N. So really I could rewrite this formula to look like this. It just looks a little nicer. I could plug in I could plug this value in for I and this value in for N, so the formula would technically look like this. It was P 1 plus R divided by C, which is your interest rate over compounding periods, and this is an exponent, years times compounding periods. But this formula is a little harder to remember. So that's why they just break it up into I and N. And they hope that you remember that stuff. So let's actually try to go figure one of these out right now. So let's write our original one. 1 plus n.
Isn't it I?
Oops, sorry. N's up here. I was wondering. Okay. So let's get a question.
It's 2 times B.
Yeah. Okay. So question 3b says $100,000. So what does $100,000 stand for? Which of these letters? Yeah, our principal. That's going to be our principal. And it says it's invested 2%, 6.2% a year. Okay? So 0.062. What does that equal to? Not quite I. This one is R. That's your interest rate. Okay? So 6.2% as a decimal is that, which is our interest rate. So you have to actually, we don't just plug that right in for I. We have to solve for I. It's compounded semi-annually. So what does that mean? Compounded semi-annually.
2 times B.
Yes, semi-annual means twice a year. So 2 equals our C. We're going to call that our C. Remember from that formula we had above. And finally, it's over 3 years.
So it's 6.
You got the right idea. 3 years is, so that's going to be our YR equals 3, we're going to call it. Okay? So when we go to plug this stuff in to our formula, A is equal to, our principal was 100,000. One plus I. We actually have to solve for I. So I is equal to, oh, no, it wasn't in blue, was it? It was in red.
What's the C again?
Compounding periods.
So
it's compounded twice a year. Yeah. Okay. So this becomes,
divided?
Yes, 0.62 divided by 2 equals. So let's figure that out. 0.062 divide 2. Yeah. There we go. So this is actually 0.031, right? Yeah. So our I is actually this number. It's not that interest rate they gave us. So 0.031. Oops. Yes. Yes. Okay, good. So you figured that one out already, right? Our N is technically years times compounding period. So it's 3 times 2, which you're right is 6. So that's going to be our 6. Now we can solve this. So 100,000, 1.031 to the power of 6. Let's figure out that. That's going to be plus 1 equals power of 6. 1.201. You got 12? Oh, you already multiplied the 100,000 in. I was doing one step at a time. Yeah, that's right. You're technically right. I'm just going to do it one step at a time just so it's kind of broken down. So this becomes 1 and then times 100,000. Oh yeah, I think you missed 2 numbers in there. Oh, you got the same number? Okay, good. So then our final answer is, what is it? 120,102. There we go. Does that make sense?